In the quiet maze of an unassuming neighborhood, where laundry flaps lazily in the breeze and rusted gates creak with age, there lived a woman whose beauty clashed hauntingly with her fractured mind. Her name was Marina Salas. She was stunning in a way that stopped time. Her cascading hair framed a face that once might have graced magazine covers. Her figure turned heads, yet her eyes told another story, one of chaos, of dreams broken in silence. Marina wasn't just mentally unwell. She was a mystery wrapped in melancholy, dancing somewhere between reality and ruin. Marina resided near her childhood home, but rarely crossed its threshold. Instead, she found comfort at the edge of the road, rocking gently, murmuring to herself, sometimes twirling with invisible music only she could hear. Her behavior was peculiar, yes, but it wasn't malicious. It was enchanting in its own strange way. Over time, the locals stopped asking why. They simply accepted her like one accepts rain in April. Then came Jonas. A boy barely into manhood, Jonas was the kind of person you might overlook at first glance. Mild-mannered, soft-spoken, and relentlessly kind. He lived in a modest bungalow with his aging parents and wore a permanent, peaceful smile. One sweltering afternoon, as Jonas wandered home from the market with a warm loaf of bread under his arm, he noticed Marina sitting on a cracked curb. She was crying, her sobs sharp and childlike. Her hand reached out, trembling. Jonas didn't hesitate. He knelt beside her and handed over the bread. No words, just compassion. Marina's face lit up, as if someone had turned the sun back on. She tore into the bread as if it were the first meal she'd had in days. And Jonas just watched, quietly, with a soft smile. But kindness has its price. When Jonas returned home without the bread, his parents noticed. Their faces hardened as he explained. "You gave it to that mad girl?" his father asked, incredulous. "She needed it more than I did," Jonas replied, simply. His mother looked away. His father wasn't so forgiving. "Don't waste our hard-earned money on lunatics," he snapped. "Let her family deal with her." But Jonas didn't stop. Something in Marina's fragile joy had touched him. Day after day, he continued to bring her food. Some days it was a sandwich, others a bowl of soup. He'd sit beside her on the curb, listening to her hum nonsense songs and whisper secrets to the air. And then something shifted. Marina began to recognize him, not just as a passerby, but as a constant. Her once blank face would light up when she saw him. She'd shout his name with unfiltered glee, like a child spotting her favorite toy. Jonas would laugh and wave. He became her anchor in a world that no longer made sense. To outsiders, it looked foolish. To the gossips and busybodies in the neighborhood, Jonas was throwing his life away on a woman who didn't even know what day it was. But Jonas didn't care. What they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was that this strange connection, this odd friendship, it mattered. Not just to Marina, but to Jonas, too. It gave him purpose. And while the world looked away in mockery or judgment, something rare was blossoming between them, something that would soon become the center of a storm no one saw coming. It started with whispers, soft at first, but sharp like needles. The neighbors had begun to talk. They scoffed at Jonas, labeling him a fool for forming a bond with that unstable girl by the road. They laughed behind closed doors and muttered in market stalls. But Jonas paid them no mind. He walked his path with quiet conviction, as though the noise around him was no more than wind in the trees. Then, without warning, the air shifted. Marina's stomach began to swell. Her belly, once hidden beneath loose, flowing dresses, now told a different story. A story no one was prepared for. And just like that, rumors ignited, like dry leaves catching fire. "She's expecting," they whispered. "Do you think Jonas is the father?" The quiet gossip became an aggressive wildfire. Judgments, speculation, and smirks passed from one doorstep to another. Accusation hung in the air like humidity before a storm. Jonas's parents, already wary of his friendship with Marina, could no longer stay silent. They confronted him in the kitchen, voices taut with disbelief. "Is it true?" they demanded. "Is that girl carrying your child?" Jonas's heart pounded in his chest. He shook his head, stumbling over his words. No, I would never. She's just my friend. But his voice cracked with anxiety, and even his denial sounded uncertain.
Still, the gossip didn't die.
And then came the cruelest blow. Anyone who asked Marina who the father was received the same soft reply. A dreamy smile, a distant gaze. Jonas, she would whisper. The name fell from her lips like a lullaby, gentle, almost tender. It wasn't long before Marina's family stormed the gates of Jonas's home, their faces twisted with rage. They demanded responsibility. They demanded answers. Jonas stood frozen in the doorway, caught between confusion and disbelief. But I never touched her, he pleaded. It's not like that. We're just friends. I was just trying to help. But no one wanted explanations. They wanted someone to blame. And Jonas, kind, quiet Jonas, was the perfect target. As the days passed, his once simple life began to crumble. Children pointed at him from across the street. Old women stared as he walked by, their eyes filled with judgment. Even the sun seemed colder. Everywhere he went, the whispers followed. They didn't just question his morality. They questioned his soul. Haunted by doubt and desperate for clarity, Jonas knew he had to speak to Marina himself. He needed the truth, not from the mouths of strangers, but from hers. He found her at her usual spot on the roadside, swaying softly to music only she could hear. Her hands rested on her growing stomach, and her eyes lit up when she saw him. Jonas knelt beside her, the weight of the world in his chest. Marina, he said gently, why do you keep telling people I'm the father of your baby? She turned to him, her smile serene and strangely pure. Because you're my friend, Jonas, she said softly. I love you. Her words struck like lightning, but not in the way he expected. In that moment, Jonas realized she hadn't been answering their question. She was answering his presence. To her, love wasn't just about romance. It was about safety, about kindness, about the one person who showed up when everyone else turned away. But for Jonas, the storm was far from over. Her affection, as sincere as it was, didn't answer the question burning in his mind. Who was the father? And why, in all this chaos, did part of him still feel responsible? Sometimes, the search for truth leads you into the jaws of something far darker than lies. That night, curiosity and something deeper drove Jonas into the shadows. He moved quietly, cloaked by darkness and hedges, toward the weathered shack Marina called home. The world around him was eerily still. Only the occasional hoot of an owl or the distant bark of a restless dog broke the silence. Then movement. Jonas froze, eyes locked on the path. Someone was approaching the hut. He leaned in, squinting through the darkness, and his heart jolted. It was Mr. Idris, a man revered by all, known for his generous donations, his charitable hand in every corner of the community. A beacon of morality. Or so they thought. Jonas watched, stunned, as Idris glanced around, then slipped silently inside Marina's door. His stomach turned. Could he be the father? Jonas's fingers trembled as he pulled out his phone, staying low, hidden. He waited. Minutes dragged into 40. And then, Idris emerged again. This time, sweat glistened on his brow, and an unsettling smile curved his lips. Jonas's hands moved quickly, snapping photo after photo. This was it. Proof. Vindication. But in his eagerness, he made a fatal mistake. The flash flickered. For a brief moment, Jonas's hiding place lit up like a lightning strike. Idris's head whipped around. His eyes locked with Jonas's. The warmth in his expression vanished, replaced by a look as cold as steel. Without missing a beat, Idris reached for his phone. Within minutes, a car screeched into the alley. Men spilled out, rough, silent, and brutal. They descended on Jonas. He was beaten swiftly, ruthlessly. His cries were muffled by fists. His phone was ripped from his hand, smashed against the pavement. Before consciousness could fade completely, he felt his limp body being shoved into a car trunk. Darkness swallowed him. By morning, the only trace of what happened was Jonas's shattered phone, lying face down near a gutter, its screen fractured like his fate. At home, his mother stirred, only to find his bed untouched. Panic settled like a stone in her chest. She called, again and again. No answer. Within the hour, she and her husband were at the local police station, frantic, desperate. But hope met apathy. One officer leaned back in his chair, arms folded. Isn't he the kid tied up with that crazy girl? Another snorted. Probably ran away. Embarrassment'll do that. His mother broke down in the lobby, begging them to look deeper. But no one listened. Days melted into weeks. In the neighborhood, speculation spread like mold. He skipped town. Couldn't face the scandal. Wasn't right in the head, that one. But the truth was far more sinister. Jonas hadn't run. He had been erased. Miles away, hidden within the high walls of Mr. Idris's estate, Jonas was locked away in a windowless room.
Damp. Mute.
Forgotten. His body bore the marks of rage. His soul, the weight of betrayal. And Idris? He visited often.
Smug. Calm.
Cool. Curiosity, he'd say, grinning, is dangerous when pointed at powerful men. You think you can bring me down? Idris snarled, his voice cold and condescending. You think you can ruin me? Jonas, bruised and bloodied, pleaded for mercy. But Idris's face was stone. No flicker of remorse. No trace of humanity. Yet Jonas refused to surrender. Somewhere within him, a fire still burned. For justice, for Marina, for the unborn child whose life had been stolen before it began. So he waited.
He watched.
He studied every moment, every step, searching for a crack in the prison that held him. Then it came. One afternoon, Idris returned, this time with a new face, a lanky associate who seemed too relaxed, too careless. Jonas, pretending to be barely conscious, stayed slumped in the corner. The moment the two men approached, he struck, grabbing the associate and using him as a shield. Chaos erupted. Idris stumbled backward in shock, and Jonas ran. He barreled through the estate's maze-like halls, lungs burning, legs fueled by adrenaline and desperation. The doors burst open, and for the first time in weeks, daylight hit his skin. A passing taxi screeched to a halt at his cries. To the police station, he shouted, breath ragged. Inside, Jonas unleashed the story that had nearly destroyed him. The room fell silent as the officers listened, stunned. One of them, a bearded sergeant with stern eyes, finally spoke. This isn't just a story, he said. It's evidence. We've got something real here. But outside, danger still lurked. As Jonas stepped out of the station, a man leaned against a nearby wall. Watching. Waiting. You think this is over? He hissed, stepping forward. Idris always wins. Jonas didn't flinch. Not this time. Truth is stronger than fear. That night, Jonas returned home, embraced by his parents with tears, trembling hands, and whispered apologies. For the first time in what felt like years, there was peace. But peace is often temporary. While they slept, shadows moved. Flames bloomed in the darkness. By dawn, the house was gone, nothing left but scorched beams and smoke-stained memories. Jonas's body was never recovered. And Idris? He vanished, as if swallowed by the earth itself. Weeks passed. Then, on a humid afternoon, a traveling preacher came to town. He spoke not of damnation, but of healing, of redemption. Crowds gathered, and from among them, Marina emerged, pregnant and silent. She approached the preacher. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders, praying not just with words but with spirit. She collapsed. When she rose, the fog was gone from her eyes. The madness had lifted. Her voice trembled as she whispered a single name, Jonas. The crowd gasped. Tears fell. In that moment, Marina became Mary again, her real name, her true self restored. She took the microphone and told the story the town had never heard in full, of how Idris had charmed her, gifted her things, promised her the world. And then one night, offered her a drink that shattered her mind like glass. From that moment on, she was no longer herself. And still he kept coming, exploiting her brokenness, ensuring her silence. He was the father of her child. The people listened, stunned, ashamed of their silence, of the rumors they had spread. Days later, Mary gave birth to a baby boy with eyes that reminded her of someone brave. She named him Jonas. She vowed to raise him with strength, to warn other young women of the wolves who hide in plain sight, and of the cost of ignoring red flags, even when they come dressed in respectability. Idris was never seen again. His name became a shadow. But Jonas's legacy lived on, not in headlines, but in the hearts of those who finally saw the truth. And in the baby boy who would grow up knowing his name came from a man who chose courage over comfort. Because sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't save you, but it does change the world around you. Be careful who you trust. Some smiles hide knives, but some hearts, like Jonas's, burn bright enough to light the way through darkness.